So, since everybody wants me to remake my tutorial, here y'all go. The best voting system in Fortnite Creative. First, you're gonna get a timer, okay? Timer device. You're gonna set it up. You can copy this if you want. It doesn't matter when you start it. I start mine at game start. Doesn't matter how long it is, just make sure you got a timer and make sure it starts whenever you need. Then you're gonna get a trigger. Okay. You can set up this however you like. If you can have it triggered by buttons, by player, by whatever. You can have it triggered by a teleporter. Just make sure it disables when receiving from the timer on success. Okay, so this trigger is gonna disable from the timer. So that means they cannot vote anymore after that timer, because this timer is the voting timer, okay? And then you're gonna get a switch. Alright. You're gonna make sure mutually exclusive 1. Okay, it doesn't have to be 1, just make sure whatever this one is will be the same throughout the process, okay? So we're gonna have more switches, just make sure they're all the same number. Then, store state per player. This will make it individual, so like the same player is not gonna be voting on the same, it's gonna store state per player, okay? It's individual. And then check state at game start, disable. Okay, then we're gonna turn on this switch when receiving from the trigger. Okay, so this trigger is gonna turn on the switch. Okay, okay. Then we're gonna get a player counter. The player counter is a little more tricky. You're gonna do not compare the player count because we're not comparing anything, it's just sending signals. We're gonna transmit on player counted / removed for signal only. If you read in the bottom, the signal only activates the transmit for all signal, which is what we need, okay? Info panel doesn't really matter. And then so we're gonna transmit for all counted players on the timer on success. Okay? So that same timer on success gonna transmit for everybody. And then on player counted, you're gonna check the state of the switch. Okay? Check state of the switch. So we're gonna go to this post trigger. Post trigger. Okay. Copy this. Copy everything here. This is what works for me. I'm not sure. It just works, okay? It works. And then start posts when receiving from the player counter, okay? That player counter is gonna start the post, and then you're good there. Now we have the next trigger, so I call it A2. This trigger, this stuff doesn't matter except for transmit every X triggers. This number needs to be higher, bigger, more than how many players are in the map, okay? Because, well, technically, you can make it the same. If you have 10 players and you have it on 10 here, the second every single person votes for this one, it will automatically work. So it would be kind of nice, but just make sure this is either equal or higher than how many players are in the map. Okay, okay. But this number does affect how long the voting will take. So like if you set this to 100, it's gonna take a while to calculate the vote. Next, we're going to trigger this trigger when receiving from switch A if check result on, okay? Trigger when receiving from the switch on check result on. That means if this switch is on, it's gonna trigger this trigger, okay? And then we're gonna do on triggered, stop the pulse, okay? Because we don't need the pulse anymore after this gets triggered. And then next we have our HUD message device. You can change this to another device like a timer or a player counter or whatever you want to start after the vote. I just use HUD message because then it'll show you, hey, this option was chosen. So this one you can edit however you need. So I'll show option 1 has been selected. And then it's gonna show when receiving from the second trigger, okay? This second trigger right here, it's gonna make this one show the message. Okay? Now, the two most important steps, you're gonna copy everything except for this player counter and the timer. So you're gonna copy trigger, switch, player counter, trigger 2, and the HUD message device, okay? And then we're just gonna copy all at the same time. Make sure it's all at the same time. And then paste. So now we have 2 options they can vote for. If you want more, just copy and paste more. It's that simple. And then we're gonna go over here. The only thing we're gonna move is this trigger needs to be on top of this trigger. So make sure it's on the same grid snap in the same place, okay? Make sure they're on top of each other. Now, in here I'll show you, this is gonna be the second HUD message. So we can change this to option 2. Alright, let's see, okay, option 2. So, if they vote for this one, it's gonna trigger this bottom trigger, it's gonna trigger this. If they trigger this one, it's gonna trigger the top trigger, and it's gonna trigger this, okay? And then you cannot forget this setting. You have to make sure this trigger, if it's triggered, disables all your other options. If this trigger is triggered, disables all the other options, okay? So all we do, trigger on triggered. We're gonna find the other trigger. Not sure what it named. Okay, so it's called A8. So on triggered, A8. It's gonna disable the other option, the other trigger, okay? And then same for this one, it's gonna disable this trigger. So A2, we're gonna add on triggered, A2, disable, okay? So this one's disabling that one, and that one's disabling this one, depending on which one gets triggered first, okay? And that's what's gonna stop it from voting for both at the same time. So basically, now you have a voting system. If you'd like me to show you, I will. I will. So, I go up here, Triggered it. Now this one's selected. Gotta wait. Wait. Gotta wait. Option 1 has been selected. Okay, we can restart it. If you don't believe me, we're gonna go over here. Option 2, pick that one. So basically what's happening is you're triggering these and they have a max limit. So right now this top one is already at 1 out of 10. And then this post trigger is gonna trigger that trigger until it hits 10. And since I voted for this top one, that one's gonna trigger first, disabling the first one, but the bottom one. And so now option 2 has been selected. And there you go. The simplest voting system in Fortnite Creative.